Welcome to the It's Better Together podcast, where intelligent conversations turn dreams into action, with hosts Marcy Stout and Allison Nissen. Each episode highlights inspirational women and practical business advice from the Revel Coach Tuesday at 2 live programs. From building a website to securing more clients, we cover topics that are interesting to you. Today we are lucky enough to have with us Neela Asaddi. Neela is the head creative director of a boutique New York City design studio who uses a holistic design approach with clients. Neela believes when one door closes, three doors open. Neela, tell me about these three doors.
So hi everyone, I'm Neela. Thank you so much for joining. I think in a very candid and authentic way, when I started my business about 3 years ago, I felt like I had kind of hit rock bottom. I worked in every single size business you can imagine, from corporate to medium size to another boutique design studio. And I, at that point, had been told that I wasn't super talented. I should go into PR. And I felt like my world had kind of crashed down on me. And then that was when I just I decided to just freelance and, take that frustration and use it as a determination and really make my own path. And I started doing business branding for clients. And after that, everything that kind of happened prior was like the beginning of the next phase of my life. So when I say one door closes, I felt like that door had kind of slapped me in the face, but then I had to really just change my attitude, which I did pretty immediately. And that was kind of the beginning of Asaadi Graphics. And I've never been happier and more proud of myself since then. So
Oh, I love it. There's nothing better than when you do have a, difficult experience or difficult feedback to kind of find yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to go for it and I'm going to do something, and it goes in your path of your passion. And you know how much I love your work. I feel like your stuff that I've seen is beautiful, and there's so many aspects to your businesses that you do. Before we kind of talk about a couple of the businesses that you have and how you work with your clients, I'd love to know more, what was your core strength? So when you said I want to go into freelance, were you always good at graphic design, or were you always you're creative with the colors and everything? Kind of give me some background to your strengths.
Okay, so first off, I'm in my childhood room right now, which I haven't lived in for several years. And my dad is a doctor. So ever since I was about 8 or 9 years old, my dad would have to, make presentations to other board members and presentations around the world. And just because I felt kind of tech savvy and had an eye for design, I would make these PowerPoint presentations for him when I was really young. I don't know if that necessarily inspired me to want to become a graphic designer, but I was kind of doing it at such a young age. And then I was always a creative. I never really considered myself using the other side of my brain too much, but I found myself being really passionate about art and design. And then when I went to high school, I created an independent study with one of my favorite art teachers, and that was a graphic design course. So it was pretty uncommon that someone created an independent study, but I knew that if I were to go to college, this is something that I'd be really passionate about. And ever since then, I think I just got lucky that I found what I really love to do, and I ran with it. And then I'm by trade a graphic designer. I went to school for it. So I studied 5 years, and then my university had a really cool internship program. So you would do 6-month internships, full-time, paid in your undergraduate, experience. So that's why I ended up doing 5 years of school, because I got to work at big companies against small companies and a small boutique design firm where I really learned everything I know from that raw working experience. So I think a lot of my expertise comes from, my training. And I always recommend people who are how do you know that, you love doing what you do? And I was you have to really just throw yourself into it and see if that's what you're passionate about. Like you can't just sit in a classroom, you have to go do it. So.
Well, the best thing about being your own boss is you really can choose every day. You're like, well, I'm going to do this. And you find yourself doing what you love. So what's your favorite part? Like if you could just wake up one morning, clean slate, what's something you're really excited to work with your clients on?
I love building a relationship with my clients. And I think that was my favorite part of being a business owner. It's because, from my experience working for a company, I feel like I didn't really have much say and I felt very limited. But now I get to wear so many hats. I get to wear like an administrative hat. I get to wear an accountant hat. I get to wear a creative hat. And it's really and especially in my business where it's pretty intimate, whether you're talking about branding a company or working with a wedding, it's a very personal industry. So I think my favorite part is just getting to know new people, talking to them, making it super human, and just establishing a relationship.
Neela, what is the one thing that I'm sure there's many, but what is the one thing that makes you the most excited to start? Like what project would be the one that really excites you the most?
So again, I work pretty primarily in the wedding industry, and I'm not married myself. I'm not engaged, so I don't know what that feeling firsthand is like, but I have grown up, my background is I'm Persian. So I grew up, going to a lot of weddings and being involved in this really beautiful time in people's lives where, like it's just like kind of like eyes on you and you get to create this amazing story for you and your partner and like have your guests kind of be on that journey with you. So I feel like anytime I get to work with new clients in the wedding industry, I feel like I am part of that story because I almost just become an extension of them, bringing any visual and creative aspect to life. So I'm not the planner, but I'm kind of handling all the small details that helps write their story.
And how do you get started? So say you're working with a new bride, and the one thing I would find, so when I was a bride, all that I do is mirror whatever my sister did 5 years earlier. I just have to do the colors and some things, but pretty much she had decided the roadmap and then I just kind of repeated it for a fun wedding at home. And then, but nowadays there's so many like blogs and there's so much information out there and every bride wants their experience a little unique. So how do you get started with a bride? How do you kind of bring their story to life?
Yeah, good question. So I think first of all, it's very overwhelming. So anyone who's recently engaged, like kudos to them kind of like being able to handle it, because especially with social media and Pinterest, you're constantly being like, so many things are being thrown at you all the time and it can be extremely overwhelming. And I think planning a wedding can be a full-time job. So where I step in is kind of alleviating that process and really getting to know the couple and really hearing them out, like seeing what they want and how they envision their big day and, what inspires them and what they've seen. So you're saying you kind of followed your sister's path. I'm sure it's because you loved everything that she did and that resonated with you. So a lot of the time people are like, I don't know where to start. And I'm like, that's totally okay. But look at whatever, like really pay attention to what you're looking at and see kind of what suits you and what doesn't. And then we'll take it from there. And when I kind of collect that information, I see patterns and I see trends and I can kind of funnel everything into 2, 3, 4 different, schematics, mood boards. And then we really like bring their vision to life by, narrowing down option and giving, because I think sometimes less is more. Right. And depending on, what clients really want, if they are coming to me just for stationery, if they're coming to me for an A to Z, me being part of their whole wedding process, I really try to make it cohesive and like thread the needle through.
And I can imagine you're slightly different than a wedding planner or wedding coordinator. Okay, yeah. So can you describe, because I wasn't too sure I understood it.
I get this question all the time.
Yeah.
So the planner and a coordinator, which usually like a coordinator is through the venue, handle all of the logistical elements of the wedding, and they're speaking to the other vendors, they're coordinating. And my job as a designer is kind of any sort of visual aesthetic element that is incorporated into the wedding, I handle. And it kind of takes the pressure off the planner and the pressure off the couple, because a lot of the time your planner is so focused on, what's being served for dinner, where are the flowers going, what time does the DJ start, when are we cutting the cake, and then I'm handling your save the dates, your invitations, your place cards, your welcome board, your welcome bags, your bachelorette swag, your bridal shower elements. So it's a lot of, if you think about it, it's anything that you can more conceptually, imagine, versus the more, day of details.
Yeah, because for me, I could see myself like, so I'm a lot more like the X's and O's for business. Like I like, here's a plan, here's the details I need to do after that. But when it actually comes to like articulating what I like from a design, I know what I like when I go into the room and it's done, but I'm not sure I can always kind of say the colors. Like there's 100 colors of white, so I could see you being like total peace of mind of making that aesthetic happen. Is it rare? Is this a new space within wedding planning, or are you one of the pioneers? I haven't heard this before.
Yeah, so it's definitely been challenging because I think, a wedding designer is not a household name. So people will be like, oh, are you a fashion designer? Are you a wedding planner? And it's definitely new to the space just because I don't know a lot of people that are kind of like a one-stop shop for wedding design. And, the greatest way for people to work with me is almost through like a referral basis, because they know what that experience feels like. So a lot of the time, like a bride will work with me and then like tell all of her friends, but it's almost a little bit challenging to introduce this concept and idea to someone who's never heard of, my business before. So it's something, to be candid, it's something I'm definitely working on, but I think it's also a niche that I love, and I'm just going to continue to try to educate and familiarize people with.
And then your business, go ahead, Alison, sorry.
I was going to say, so I was remarried about 9 years ago, and I did, it was a small wedding, a second wedding, you just want to stay within a budget, and I wasn't so worried about all the other details until day of, and then I was like, freak out. But so are you mostly working with like the paper products? Are you also dealing with like the arrangements and the dress?
So as far as arrangements, what do you mean?
Well, I'm thinking of flowers and.
Oh, sure. So that's a two-part answer, I think. So I handle almost all stationary paper elements. And then as far as dress and flowers, I think that, so a lot of the times, let's say like a handful of my clients are doing a destination wedding and there's a very evident theme to their wedding. Let's just use Mexico as an example. So the look and feel of the dress and the flowers can definitely be incorporated into your invitation, and the way your menus look and the way that your hotel bags and notes are kind of curated. So a lot of the time when clients first come to me, they're like, okay, we found our venue, we met our florist, we have our photographer, and those three vendors and those three individuals definitely impact my work, because what do the flowers look like? Can we incorporate those into the invitation? If not those specific flowers, maybe the colors. Does your dress have lace in it? Does it have some sparkle to it? So while I don't directly go to your dress fitting with you or go to meet your florist, I collect all of that information because it definitely inspires and impacts my work.
I bet it creates a very cohesive image for the wedding itself, because
that's what
yeah. And then do you do the same thing for events? I mean, so a lot of times people have a big event, an anniversary party.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So the way I kind of, I'll like backtrack a bit to give you some insight. So the way I kind of got started was I was always doing business branding for Asaadi Graphics. So I was working really closely with clients to establish a look and feel for their business and their brand. And two friends of mine were getting married a couple years ago, and they both asked me to help, pull the pieces together for they both had destination weddings. So there were a lot of elements that kind of needed to be designed and executed. And I found it a very easy transition for me to kind of do business branding and then do almost wedding branding, because you have to have that cohesive look and feel. You have to establish, well, it's not brand guidelines, it's like you know what's going to happen in the wedding and all of the elements that kind of tie everything together. So whether it's an event or a business or a wedding, it's the blueprint is pretty similar.
You had mentioned most of your clients, do you get word of mouth? I mean, are they referrals?
Yeah, I think that you know, the strongest referral anyone can give is through word of mouth, just because you have worked with that person, you hopefully know them, love them, and trust them. So, especially, I'm someone who is a big advocate for, networking and, passing along the information of other small businesses. So I think referrals are always a great way to, like gain new clients. But then also now with social media and like Google ads, a lot of the time people find me through Yelp or the Knot, which is the wedding platform. So I just find it easier and smoother to kind of work with clients once they know someone who's worked with me, because it eliminates that hesitation.
And is it primarily the luxury market?
Not really. So I would say that since I don't offer like rigid packages, I kind of, my work can always be a la carte and customizable to you. So if you only want save the dates with me, it doesn't have to be someone who has a really high budget. I want to work with anyone that I can who is kind of looking to bring their vision to life. So while some people have a much larger budget than others, there's definitely a range.
And how has the current situation that we're all staying at home, how has that actually changed your business plans? And how have you adjusted?
Yeah. So I'll kind of discuss the business and wedding portion of my business separately. So for the like business side of Asaadi Graphics, it's actually been really amazing and interesting, because I think now that a lot of people are at home and they have a little more time than usual, they're looking to revamp their brand. They're looking to get their website cleaned up a bit. They're looking for some marketing promo and some decks. So while I felt like my business was wedding focused for about a year or so, now it seems to be pretty balanced, which is great, because I love kind of having that synergy of working with business clients and wedding clients. And in the wedding respect, since there's just so much unknown right now, I'm doing a very active job of keeping in touch with my current clients and any prospective clients, just because, no one likes to feel like they are, unseen and they're not feeling supported, especially when it's coming to their wedding and planning for it. So about a month ago, I was planning to launch this, in-person community for anyone who's engaged, that kind of allowed you to bring any questions and anything you really wanted to talk about wedding related, almost like an emotional support group, to the Wedding Collective. And due to COVID, I ended up launching it online, and it became a Zoom community very similar to this. And it was almost a blessing in disguise, because initially I was finding trouble finding a location, and then, people work, so getting them to show up after work. Whereas now it's amazing, because I have found so much more traction doing it digitally, and people are really comfortable having these conversations in the comfort of their own home with their partner, with their friends, with their family. So while COVID has been very emotionally difficult for everybody. I think it's important as business owners and as just humans to kind of find the light at the end of the tunnel. So,
Well, and we do know we'll get through this. And we
yeah.
do know everyone's still going to get married.
Yes.
At some point, the wedding planning and making this special day is great, especially if there's any brides to be on this phone.
Yeah.
Which there is one. So I just want to secretly say we have a recent engagement, which is always exciting.
Yeah.
So we have a couple more questions. What made you interested in the wedding industry? Is that something you were always interested in?
Sure. So actually, my third internship in college was at a luxury design and wedding focused agency. So that's based in New York. And my sister, actually, who's 9 years older than I am, used that company for her wedding invitations. And I remember just being in awe of how amazing her whole invitation suite looked. And then I ended up getting my third internship there, and I learned a ton. But at the time, I didn't realize how much I was, how it made me feel until I left. And I was like, wow, it's so amazing to be able to make this day and make everything leading up to it so special. So I think subconsciously that left a really remarkable impression on me. And I definitely owe a lot of, where I am now to that, that 6-month period.
Yeah, that's great. And at a previous time, you and I were talking about the imposter syndrome and asked if you had ever experienced that, or if that's ever a situation that, you felt starting a business. And I was just curious, what is your feeling about the imposter syndrome that a lot of entrepreneurs go through?
Sure. I feel like it's very difficult, to be honest, to not feel that, just because, again, with don't get me wrong, I think social media is fantastic and it's a great way to market yourself, but it can be a little overwhelming at times. So I think you have to actively decide how to, take all the information that you're receiving and not really let it impact you as a business owner or as a consumer. And initially, when I started my business, like I had mentioned, I was working as a freelance graphic designer doing business branding. And I kind of felt like, what makes Asaadi Graphics unique? And I was really struggling with that. Like, how can I really set myself apart? And it wasn't until I started working more in the wedding industry, closer with, couples, that I saw that the experience that I'm giving to my clients is a unique one. And I found my niche, and I found really what my passion is, and that no longer feels like work. And there wasn't a why so much, because I think when you find what inspires you and you find what you love, then you don't feel like an imposter, because you're being authentic to yourself. So I would say my recommendation is just stay true to what, gets you up in the morning. Even though that sounds a little cliche, but then you won't go searching so much. You'll kind of know what feels right and what you want to put out.
To watch a live Tuesday at 2 program with Revel Coach, visit us at revelcoach.com. Until next time.